You know that feeling when you're absolutely certain about something, and then, maybe years later, you realize you were completely wrong. Maybe it was a childhood belief, like being convinced a monster lived in your closet, only to one day understand it was just shadows and a noisy heater. That moment of realization, that shift in understanding, is something we've all experienced. It's a little unsettling, but it's also how we grow. Now imagine that same process, but applied to the huge systems and institutions that shape our entire lives. That's where a thinker named Ivan Illich comes in, and his ideas might just change how you see the world, especially when we look at something as powerful as Big Pharma. Illich had a radical but simple core idea. He believed that past a certain point, the very institutions we create to help us, like schools, hospitals, or transportation systems, actually start to work against us. They can create a sense of dependency, making us feel like we can't function without them. And in doing so, they can drain away our own natural confidence and ability to care for ourselves and each other. He wasn't saying all institutions are evil. He was saying that when they get too big and too powerful, they have a tendency to become counterproductive. He famously said, "The medical establishment has become a major threat to health." That's a pretty shocking statement, right? How could the system designed to make us well actually be a threat? This connects to a natural tension we all live with, a kind of tug of war inside our own minds. On one side, there's our instinctive, automatic thinking. It's fast, it's efficient, and it loves to be right. You probably recognize that stubborn feeling of being right, of holding onto an idea simply because it's yours, and it feels safe. It's the part of us that gets defensive in an argument, or feels a jolt of irritation when someone challenges a deeply held belief. Many of us cling to familiar ideas because they form the bedrock of our identity. To question them can feel like questioning who we are. But on the other side is a quieter, deeper awareness. It's the part that's curious, that's willing to ask, "What if?" and sit with uncomfortable questions. It's the part that eventually recognized the monster in the closet was just a coat. This deeper awareness doesn't need to be right all the time. It just wants to understand. The friction between these two parts of ourselves is where all personal growth happens. And according to Illich, this same friction exists between us and the giant systems we live inside. Let's take his idea and apply it to the world of Big Pharma. The institution's stated goal is our health. It provides medicines that save lives and manage terrible diseases. No one can deny the incredible good that comes from that. But Illich would ask us to look at what happens when this institution grows beyond a certain scale. Does it still primarily serve our health? Or does it begin to serve its own need to grow and perpetuate itself? This is where we can start to see how we might be fooling ourselves, often with the system's help. It starts by redefining what a problem is. A normal human experience, like feeling sadness, having low energy, or being nervous before a big speech, gets medically framed as a disorder that needs a professional solution. We're encouraged to see these feelings not as a natural part of life's tapestry, but as a malfunction. The message, often subtle, is that you cannot handle this on your own. You need our product, our expertise. We come to believe that well-being comes from a bottle prescribed by an expert, rather than from our own actions, our communities, our diets, our sense of purpose. The institution creates a dependency, making us addicted to its solutions. The addiction isn't always to a chemical substance. It can be an addiction to the idea that we are broken and incapable without their intervention. We surrender our own agency, our own innate knowledge of our bodies and minds, because we trust the authority. We forget that we have the capacity to heal, to comfort, and to understand ourselves in profound ways. This is the heart of Illich's warning. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's a structural observation. A system designed to fix us can, over time, have a vested interest in us staying, just a little bit broken, or at least convinced that we are, in order to guarantee its own survival and growth. It medicalizes life itself. We start looking for a pill for every pang, a diagnosis for every doubt, outsourcing our health until we feel powerless without the system we rely on. This cracks open a whole new way of seeing the world, a lens through which the familiar suddenly looks strange. We start our journey in a place of simple trust. We believe our institutions, from healthcare to education, are fundamentally designed for our well-being. A pill is prescribed to fix a problem. A school is built to educate a child. A car is manufactured to provide freedom. The relationship seems straightforward and benevolent. We are the patient, the student, the driver, and the institution is the helpful expert providing a necessary service. Our reactions at this stage are often automatic, a knee-jerk trust in the established system. We don't question the prescription, we simply take it. We don't question the curriculum, we assume it's for the best. This is where Ivan Illich would say we are operating within the system's prescribed ritual, consuming its services without a second thought. Then comes the confusing middle, and this is where things get intensely uncomfortable. This is the phase where the initial, simple story begins to fray at the edges. You might be someone who resists change at first, clinging to the old simplicity. But then you notice things. Perhaps you see a news story about pharmaceutical pricing, or you experience the bureaucratic runaround of a healthcare system more focused on paperwork than patience. You try to get a straight answer and are met with impenetrable jargon. This is the disorienting shift Illich describes, where the tool that was meant to serve us starts to demand service in return. The institution is no longer a clear servant, but has become a master with its own demands. Most of us feel uneasy during these transitions, a sense that something is wrong, but we can't quite put our finger on it. The medical system seems to create as many sick people as it heals, diagnosing new conditions for every pill it sells. Education seems to produce as much anxiety as it does knowledge, conditioning students for a system rather than empowering them for life. This is the tough middle phase Illich saw not as a bug, but as a feature of institutional domination. The confusion is the result of the institution working exactly as intended, creating a cycle of dependency where we are made to feel perpetually inadequate and in need of its next product, its next certificate, its next upgrade. But if we push through that discomfort, a new clarity begins to emerge, a profound and radical kind of understanding. This is not about hating institutions, but about recognizing their inherent tendency to overgrow their original purpose and become counterproductive. The thoughtful response, in Illich's terms, is to reclaim our own innate capacities. It's the shift from being a passive consumer of healthcare to an active participant in your own well-being. It's questioning whether a pill is the only answer, or if lifestyle, community, and prevention could play a larger role. You may catch yourself pausing before reacting lately, before automatically accepting the expert's opinion as gospel. This is the beginning of conviviality, Illich's contrast to industrial domination. It's about seeking tools that amplify human creativity and connection rather than systems that create isolation and dependency. We start noticing the small spaces where we can exert our autonomy. It's choosing to walk instead of drive when possible, valuing a conversation with a friend over a new medication, or learning a skill for the joy of it rather than for a credential. This new clarity is sobering but also incredibly empowering. It reveals that our addiction to institutional solutions was fostered, not natural. The path forward isn't about destroying big pharma or schools, but about consciously limiting their power over our lives. and rediscovering the confidence that we, as individuals and communities, possess the ultimate authority over our own health and learning. It is a journey back to ourselves. Through this discomfort, we begin to see the faint outlines of a new path. It's not a brightly lit highway with clear signs, but more like a trail we start to notice we're already on, one we've been subtly carving with each uncertain step. This feeling, this raw and tender spot, is not a sign of failure, but of growth. It's the friction of an old skin that no longer fits, the ache of a perspective that has become too small for the life we are now living. And it is precisely here, in this vulnerable and honest space, that the real work begins. We start to question the scripts we've been handed, the ones that told us what success should look like, what a good life is supposed to be. We realize that much of what we thought was our own ambition was actually a borrowed expectation, a character we were playing so well we almost forgot it was a role. This questioning can feel isolating at first, as if we're the only ones who didn't get the memo, the only ones struggling to make sense of the rules. But this is where something fascinating happens. As we sit with this discomfort, we might start to recognize a common pattern, a shared human tendency. We see how easily we accept vague, personality-focused descriptions as deeply personal truths. You know the ones, those online quizzes that tell you you're a free-spirited innovator or a loyal guardian. We nod along, thinking how uniquely they capture our essence. Or we read our horoscope and marvel at its accuracy, how it seems to speak directly to our situation. This is the Barnum effect in action, our psychological readiness to accept generalized statements as highly specific to us. It's a comfort, a way to feel seen and categorized in a complex world. But it can also be a trap, a set of soft handcuffs that keep us within a predefined box, limiting our sense of what's possible for us. The magic occurs when we become aware of this mechanism. It's like noticing the seams on the backdrop of a play. Once you see them, the illusion starts to dissolve. You begin to catch yourself in the act of accepting these broad labels. You'll notice a horoscope and think, that could apply to anyone having a busy Tuesday. And instead of feeling duped, you feel a little freer. That label loses its power to define you. This awareness starts to seep into daily life in the most subtle yet profound ways. You'll likely find daily decisions coming easier because you're less concerned with what the choice says about your type of person and more focused on what simply feels right for you in that moment. The noise of external validation begins to quiet down, and in that newfound silence, your own voice becomes clearer, more distinct, something you can actually hear and trust. This isn't an overnight transformation, but a gradual rewiring, a slow and steady reclaiming of your own narrative. Many notice old frustrations don't bother them as much. The driver who cuts you off, the long line at the grocery store. These minor irritations begin to lose their sting because your sense of self is less fragile, less dependent on the world conforming to your expectations. You are no longer playing a role that requires everyone else to be a perfect supporting actor. You are just you, navigating a messy, unpredictable world, and that is more than enough. This process is deeply personal, yet it connects us to a universal human experience. We are all, in our own ways, sifting through the layers of conditioning and expectation to find the core of who we are beneath it all. It's a journey from a life of performance to a life of presence. We spend so much of our lives performing. The good employee, the dependable friend, the perfect parent, the successful individual. We perform these roles based on a script we didn't write, for an audience we can't always see. The discomfort we feel is the strain of that performance, the ache of muscles held in a pose that isn't natural. Letting go of that is the work of a lifetime, but it starts with a single moment of awareness, a single decision to relax the performance just a little, to speak a line that feels true instead of one that feels expected. This is how we start to author our own script, not from scratch, but by editing out the parts that were never us to begin with. And as we do this, as we shed these layers, we make a beautiful and liberating discovery. We find that the goal was never to find a new, better, more perfect identity to cling to. The freedom isn't in swapping one pair of ill-fitting shoes for another that we hope will be more comfortable. The freedom is in the very act of walking barefoot, of feeling the ground beneath our feet, with all its textures and temperatures. It's the freedom to be complex, contradictory, and constantly changing. To be a work in progress, not a finished product. This is where our humanity truly resides, not in the polished facade, but in the authentic, unfinished, and beautifully imperfect core of our being. We stop trying to fit ourselves into a mold, and instead allow our own unique shape to define the space we occupy. This journey inward, as challenging as it is, ultimately radiates outward, transforming our relationships with everything and everyone around us. When we're no longer desperately seeking external validation, we can connect with others from a place of genuine curiosity and compassion, not from a need for them to confirm our worth. We can listen to understand, not just to respond. We can appreciate others for who they are, not for what they can do for our self-image. Our interactions become less transactional and more relational, rooted in a shared experience of being human. We begin to see the same struggles and triumphs in others that we see in ourselves, fostering a deeper sense of empathy and community. We realize we were never alone in this. We were just too busy performing to notice the others around us, also yearning to take off their masks. Together, we discover that the most profound sense of belonging comes not from fitting in, but from showing up as we truly are and finding that we are accepted. And better yet, that we are not so strange after all. Our quirks and uncertainties become points of connection, not separation. We build a world not of perfect, polished individuals, but of real, flawed, and wonderfully human people, supporting each other through the beautiful mess of life. This collective awakening, this shared commitment to authenticity, is what creates a truly compassionate and resilient community. It starts with one person's courage to be uncomfortable, but it grows into a wave of liberation that can touch everyone around them. This entire process, from the first pang of discomfort to the dawning of a new, more authentic way of being, echoes the powerful insight of philosopher Ivan Illich, who argued that true freedom is not about acquiring more choices within a system, but about liberating ourselves from the systems that dictate the terms of our choices in the first place. It is a profound shift from seeking better-fitting constraints to experiencing the unconstrained self. It is, as he so perfectly put it, like finally taking off shoes that never quite fit. Shoes we didn't even realize we could remove, and feeling the cool, solid, reassuring earth directly under our own soles for the very first time.